What's up, everybody, and welcome to Real Time for the Real Everyday Movie Fan. I'm Ryan Murphy,
And I'm James Sheridan.
and we are here to give you our review of episode 8. Wow, we're on 8 now of Star Trek Picard season 3. Holy shit, I am so fucking tired of waiting for this show. Don't get me wrong, it's been a decent season. It's just if it had all dropped at once, I wouldn't be so frustrated. But it's
Not only
it's
that, but
just
it's only in this episode that we finally get the fucking reunion we've been wanting the entire season,
right.
and it's taken
Uh,
8 episodes out of 10 to get there. It's like, okay, I guess we're just on like a rocket ride to the end now because that's all that's
well,
left.
let's start with the positive. Okay, so this episode did give us that thing I've been talking about the whole season, which is the seven. I didn't even know it was gonna be seven at the beginning. I just thought it was gonna be six of the seven.
Yeah,
So added bonus. But it gave us the seven guys sitting around the conference table, and they even referenced it when they went to do it. They're like, "Wow, it's been a long time since we did this."
yeah, that was a great
And
little nod.
I kept saying, like, my heart's not ready for it. I'm not gonna be able to take it when it happens. It was awesome. Um, Finally gave us that. That's fantastic. But I have a serious bone to pick with this episode. It was with just the fact that the last episode ended with Vatic taking over the ship and saying, "Jack Crusher, it's time. It's time you found out who you really are."
Yeah,
The episode opens, and I'm like, "Here we go." And then like a minute passes, and she's talking about something else. I'm like, "Don't talk about that. Get to what said you were going to talk about." And I thought it was going to be right away, and then I pretty soon realized she wasn't going to talk about it. And then we get to the end of the fucking episode, and they teased the same thing they teased at the end of the last episode, which is next week you'll find out, which they said last week. I just
to be
cannot
fair,
believe a
this is
show
like
did that
this
twice in a row.
this is like the third or fourth episode where they've ended on either Vatic saying you're gonna find out who you are, or saying like someone saying something along the lines of like who is Jack Rusher, or just ending on that visual of the door. Like this is the second episode to end on the visual of the door, and it's like you've been teasing us for how long about what this guy's like supposed background and significance is, and even the teaser for next week, which I'm not going to spoil, doubles down
Oh,
on
I
the
haven't
same
even thought
goddamn
about the
thing.
teaser.
And
I
it's
haven't even
like,
thought about what they show for the next week. But no,
oh,
it's like I don't care that it takes them 9 episodes to get to it. I care about the fact that like they shouldn't have ended last week's episode by saying that. That was the word that was you saying next week at 2 a.m. you will find out. And the next week comes, the whole episode goes by, and they're like, next week at 2. No, you don't get to say that. Like it's so it that's very frustrating, but I did get the reunion I've been hoping for, and I'm hoping these last two we've been saying this whole time. I hope it picks up. I hope it picks up. And I even said, like, at the very beginning, I was like, I don't care if it takes us to the last 3 episodes to get the whole crew together, because 3 episodes is the length of a motion picture. So as long as we get the equivalent of a motion picture with these guys, it's fine. Well, we've got them together now. We've got 2 episodes to rock our socks off. No more waiting. I'm gonna start playing Tom Petty's "The Waiting is the Hardest Part," on loop. Gosh, this is just infuriating. But yeah, but I think there's little doubt now that it is the Borg that Jack's connected to. When they did the fisheye lens, when he's seeing people through the fisheye lens, and when talking about how there's an ancient voice, ancient and angry, in his back of it said, and it's a woman, and it's like it's the Borg. But I was
I
really
still, I,
surprised.
I wouldn't be surprised if it's the Borg. I just think it's weird that they would bring in the Borg this
Yeah,
late in the story for that. I still think it's probably something to do with the changelings themselves, because it has more of an organic feeling than the Borg, who tend to be more like, I know they're techno organic, but like the Borg, when they sort of infiltrate you, it's all sort of technological, and all of the
yeah,
imagery that's sort of surrounding the door and his sort of visions is very sort of like organic tendril. In fact, like I keep joking that it reminds me of the Upside Down, especially like the visuals when like behind the door kind of thing, where you see
yeah.
like this mass devastation on Earth. Um, I could be wrong. I'm again down for the Borg entirely, but
When you talk about how weird it would be if they introduced them this late in the game, let's talk about something that happened pretty late in the game. Is that they killed off Vatic.
yeah, that
And
was
it was
weird.
like they killed her off with 2 episodes left to go. So we're gonna get some sort of bigger villain in the last 2 episodes. No matter what, it's gonna be something that comes in really late in the game. As this, it's
True.
probably gonna be the whoever she's been talking to, and
I
yeah,
I
it's
mean
gonna be
it.
weird no
I
matter
just
what.
that's why I think it's probably going to be something involved with the changeling, because it's going to be such a left field kind of, like, we know it's connected to Picard and what's his name, and like and Jack, because of like they want Picard's body. They've been trying to get Jack the entire time. We know that the changelings are involved throughout all of this and are probably still going to be the primary antagonists.
Mhm.
I just don't see why they would connect the changelings to the Borg unless there was some very specific reason that they wanted Borg tech, and other than as some sort of weapon, which I think would be a very lame use of the Borg. I don't know. I think to bring in something thematic connecting to Picard with the Borg this late in the game, um, I could be wrong. I often am, and I'm willing to admit when I'm wrong. But I, I, I don't know. I just think because they've doubled down so much on the changelings being the big bad, that I think it's still going to continue in that push. Um, Again, would love to see the Borg. I'm such a huge fan of the Borg, and um, like my favorite episodes are Borg related. My favorite movie is Borg related. You know, I'd be fine with it either way. I do think it's weird that, again, they killed Vatic at this point in the story. It's like you left her for dead several episodes, and she didn't need to come back necessarily. You could have introduced someone else to come back and maybe even tie into the end a little bit better. I will say that how she died was kind of badass, because I had no idea that the viewer could like open up and just become a escape hatch kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it's like it's such a weird ass pull to like just introduce that concept. If it's existed in Trek before, I've never seen it before, but I do think that was such a cool little like surprise for them, and like drops a nice little F-bomb there, which is so unusual for Trek, but like Picard seems to be okay with it. And then she just gets sucked out into space, turned to you know, changeling ice, and shattered into changeling ice cubes. And yeah, it was a nice death, but just again, weird time to do it, I guess. I don't know. The pacing and like structure of this season has just been
It
all over
seems
the
like it's begging
place.
for some fan to do a re-edit of it, like like do
Yeah.
like a Topher Grace like re-edit of
Well, there was
of yeah.
semi-related. There was a guy who re-edited the Kenobi show into a 2-hour movie, and
I've heard of.
Lucasfilm
I think I've
hired him.
maybe. Oh, I haven't heard of that. I've heard of some guy who was trying to do that, but I
Oh no,
that
this guy
might be a
succeeded.
different
He
guy.
he did it. He released it. Lucasfilm hired him, and some of the fans are thinking that maybe they're going to release the 2-hour movie, and that's why they like paid him. Is, this is for your effort and this kind of thing, and we'll do a version of it, because if they release it, it would seem like they're kind of like copying his thing. But um,
Mhm.
I have no idea what they're actually going to do. I just thought it was cool that a fan edit actually led someone to a job kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So not the whole lot to say is it was another.
I
I
mean,
don't
there's a few
know.
more
We
things.
haven't.
I
You know.
love the line when they're coming. Riker and Deanna finally join, and they're coming down the hallway, and Rafi's just kicking ass, and Deanna turns her and goes, "You're scary."
Okay.
Because
I mean,
I don't know. I
I
thought it was a great little line.
I
And
just hate Raffi so much. I want her out of there so badly that I'm not really.
I'm not. I don't hate her. She's just. I don't understand why she's there for most of this, because she has nothing to do with the rest of the crew. I know she's part of the Picard show, but like
Well, so a
other
lot of people
other
that didn't.
other than, and like that's the thing, is like everybody else who was sort of attached to the show has gone by the wayside. We've gotten almost nobody besides Raffi and
Seven.
Seven this season. Seven at least has connection to Trek lore,
Huh.
even though she's from a completely different show. At least there's that excuse. But Raffi's just sort of like
And is a
there,
beloved character.
and
For,
yeah, and she's just sort of like Worf's sidekick, and it's like I feel like Worf could have done this on his own, or I don't know, bring in Worf's son or somebody who could
yeah.
be who's an actually established character, and could be a sidekick kind of thing. Even like he's not a teenager anymore; he'd be a fully grown man, but at least like Worf could be
Yeah.
passing down the wisdom to somebody who kind of deserves it. I guess not that Raffi doesn't deserve it, just sort of. I don't know why she's there is the bottom line.
Yeah. But there's some
She's not
good
really
Worf
serving.
stuff in this episode. Yeah, like when Worf, like there's another badass Worf moment where the Klingon theme plays, Jerry Goldsmith Klingon theme, and Worf kicks ass, and then he starts like sort of hitting on Deanna, and it's sort of referencing the fact that there was that sort of
I hate that
that ship
episode.
that only Brandon Braga, the writer, ever like did anything with. Like he's the only like
Yeah.
every if you go back in time and watch all the Next Generation, every time that there's some sort of romantic thing between Worf and Deanna, look at the credits. It says written by Brandon Braga every single time. No one else ever did anything with that. That was his ship. And
I
so they
never
kind of
understood that
reference
one.
but they, yeah, that was just his. That was like Bruce Timm and Batman and Batgirl, where it's just this one ship that this one writer is
Ugh.
obsessed with that he keeps throwing out there. Uh,
I will say I do find it fascinating. You were mentioning when the first time they brought up the Klingon theme. I think the Klingon theme has played more in this series than the rest of
yeah,
Star Trek combined at this point. Because this
yeah,
is like the third or fourth point
it's
where they brought it back.
yeah, but yeah, and so he starts hitting on Deanna basically, and Wrecker's like inappropriate.
Yeah.
So referencing that, the one line I thought kind of went a little too far was like when they're at the conference table and he's like, "Yes, have killed many enemies and have considered sending you all their heads." I'm like, okay, that's a little extra,
A
but
little
I,
on the nose.
appreciate. But
Especially
yeah,
for
I
a guy
appreciate that.
who who's been in human culture almost his entire life. Like it's not like he's a Klingon fish out of water at this point. He knows that humans want a severed head. Like it's such a weird line for a character that we've established is very familiar with human culture. And even
Yeah,
like if even if he was a fish out of water when he joined in TNG, it's been 30 years. He's had a long time to become accustomed to people don't like severed heads.
yeah.
But one of my favorite lines from Wayne's World is she's giving him a gift and he says, "If it's a severed head, I'm going to be very upset. If Worf gave me a gift that was a severed head, I would be very upset."
It's dumb line in an otherwise wonderful scene, which is obviously like my favorite scene of the show so far. I'm not sure what to make of Data being like not entirely Data. It's like, well,
I like it.
just bring not Data with an asterisk. I mean, like like if you're gonna
I
bring back Data, just bring back
well,
Data. Like some of his personality changes could be. I mean, since he got his emotion chip, he has been different. You don't have to have him be combined with Lore to be different. Like so, like when he starts kind of cussing out Vatic over the intercom, I didn't take that immediately as being like, oh, Lore's part of him. I took that like he like go back to Generations. He would life forms you tiny little life form. So this is
yeah,
nothing new for Data. The
that
problem is once Data got his emotion chip, they didn't really know what the fuck to do with him. And unlike the TV show where they had 26 episodes a season, they only had 4 movies. So the first
yeah,
movie he acts like that. Second movie he shuts it off. The third movie he didn't take it with him. And I forget the fourth movie because no one fucking cares. So like
they kill
there
him.
hasn't been a lot of screen time for emotional Data in the 25 years
Well,
since he got his emotion chip.
I was also
So I
watching
don't any different that much different than he was in Generations.
a YouTube video that kind of outlined the history of Data trying to like what they were trying to do with Data throughout at least the movies. So the first
Hmm.
movie they gave him the emotion chip. The second one they were
Yeah,
actually going to if you remember correctly, they were trying to make him part Borg by giving him um
yeah,
organic material. And they started
yeah.
grafting skin to his arm. And what they were actually trying to do, and in an early draft of the script, was they were going to give him entirely skin because
Hmm.
Brent Spiner thought he couldn't play the character for much longer because he was aging and Data would
Hmm.
start looking older. And an android isn't going to start looking older. Now they've kind of
Hmm.
circumvented that with this new Data body kind of thing where like they've intentionally made him look old to deal
Yeah.
with the fact that Brent Spiner's, got a paunch and, sagging face. Like he's an older guy now and like he's not young and spry and Data changes. And I like that they were thinking of those things and they were going to kill Data off in Insurrection. And like he requested that they do that because he thought they'd taken the character as far as it could go. And the studio, or when they sent the script to him for the actual movie, they just had a post-it note on it saying sorry. So he finally got his wish in Insurrection, and I think they gave him a good send off in that. But like, I like the fact that they brought him back. I like the whole standoff between him and Lore. Probably wasn't necessary for the fact of like for the purpose of the storytelling, but I like it for the purpose of his character arc during this season. And like bringing him back, and of course he's got all these different aspects in his personality because he has these two conflicting things, but he's also, as he said, part Lore and part B4 and parts Sung and all of that's still in there. Um,
Hmm.
but I like that scene where it's the standoff between them. Like I like the way it kind of plays out and the visuals of it, and like just Geordi's utter heartbreak when he watches just Lore completely take over. But because
Hmm.
it's Data giving parts of himself to Lore, and Lore's taking them as trophies and thinking he's won, and it's like Data's sort of not corrupting him, but like I don't even know how to explain it, but like Data basically ends up winning, and it's like I like that they've melded these different personality aspects. Like it's amusing the ongoing thing with Data was that he couldn't use contractions, and that was always how they figured out that it was Lore, because he would say I
Mhm.
can't or I don't or whatever it was. I like that he's now using contractions. The swearing thing is weird, but like I mean, they did that in they did stuff like that in First
Generations.
Contact where he's like yes in the middle of the ship. That's like that's not something
So that
Data
was
would do,
Generations.
and it's like
Generations where he said, "Oh shit,"
yeah,
which is probably the
but like
first shit in Star Trek. And then and yes, that was Generations as well. So
oh, I
yeah.
thought that was
So like
First
I said,
Contact.
like I don't no. You should know
No,
that's your
okay.
favorite Star Trek.
I haven't seen it in years.
Yeah. We're gonna see it again because we're
Yeah,
gonna review it.
I need to watch both of those again.
But no, so overall, kind of we've gotten what we wanted. We've gotten the whole crew together. So all that's
Except
left
for
was
one
just
thing.
what's that?
There's one thing that we both
Except
wanted that I don't think we're gonna get at this late stage in the game, and that's the crew on the Enterprise.
the crew on the Enterprise, which yeah, I
Like
think we're just gonna
it's
get
really
that
just
quick.
gonna be that one goddamn shot of the
That
flyby, and I think that's basically it. It's like you have an opportunity here. Why did you not write it? There's like
I
so
think if
many
they were gonna do
opportunities
it
to bring
that
it
way, they
in,
would
but
have put them on they would have written the Titan as the Enterprise instead of like they would have been on the Enterprise the whole time.
well, I
But
like the idea of whatever they're going to fight, both the Titan and the Enterprise fighting them at the same time, and having the
yeah,
two crews separated because you've got Seven and the Prick over on the Titan, and you've got the Enterprise crew on the Enterprise, and it's like again we keep talking about the illusions, especially to the original cast films. That
mhm,
great scene, and I don't remember which movie it was, but where it's the Enterprise and the Excelsior together, and Sulu's and captaining the
yeah,
Excelsior, and the two of them are fighting ships together, and it's like I'd love
mhm,
to see that team up kind of thing, and it's the two of them in it together kind of thing, and it's a send off
mhm,
not just to the Enterprise crew, but to this version of the Enterprise, because of course I don't know if it's canon, but from what I've read, the Enterprise E is destroyed, just
okay.
like the D was. So like this would be the closest thing we have to an Enterprise, unless they of course stole, um, you know, either the Enterprise NX or the Enterprise A. But both of
Which would
those
have
are
been
such.
we talked about how cool that would have been that would have
It
been
would have
if
been
it
cool,
was
but
the original.
they're such relics that any ship that we go up against, it would just be like flicking flies out of the sky kind of thing. Like they
The
need a
NX maybe,
modern
but the
warship.
A, yeah,
I mean, the A
yeah.
is like what 100 some odd years old at this point. Like it's a relic.
Okay. But yeah, so but again, another episode where it's kind of just waiting. I'm really hoping for great things from the last two episodes. Last fifth of the show. I'm just gonna have to play the Catholic card here. It's been the season of this show is James is like, what the hell are we going to expect here? This show has aired entirely during the season of Lent, which is sort of a season of supposed to be waiting
Yeah.
and being patient, and the word Lent literally means slow. And then especially right now as we record this review, it's Holy Saturday, which is the day of waiting, the day between the crucifixion and I'm getting way too. Anyway, so I'm hoping these last two episodes, which will be during the Easter season, it's going to have a correlation. It'll be divinely inspired, this show. It'll be the first 8 episodes during Lent, a time of waiting, and then the last two episodes are the ultimate season of rejoicing, where we get the yeah. So
It'd
that
be
got
nice.
weird. I'm sorry.
No, I get where you're coming from. You've always got that sort of Catholic inspiration. You always remind me of Daredevil, where it's like you can't escape that part of you. But it's like I get what you're coming from, and like I certainly hope that there's something more to the last two episodes, because overall, like I've shit on this season so much. Overall, I've enjoyed
Yeah.
the season. Just the pacing, the structure, a lot of the
It,
storytelling. This could have been a lot
again, if it
shorter.
was if it was a Netflix style thing, and it just dropped it once, we wouldn't be shitting on it at all, because we'd just zoom through it,
Probably.
and then we'd
But that
yeah, we'd
said,
be like,
I've
"Ah."
really come to in like as much as I love Netflix's like just drop everything and I can race through, Stranger
Mhm.
Things in the nights, even though it's like 72 hours long for the last season. Um, I kind of like this model with Disney Plus and Paramount now doing just weekly releases, because it reminds me of old school television where you had to wait weekly. So like, or sometimes even longer. Like, we keep talking about TNG, Best of Both Worlds, had to wait an entire goddamn
Yeah,
summer to find out what happened to
is
Picard.
like
So
it's the ultimate that is the ultimate, like when if you were to make like an annals of TV history, the best
yeah,
of both worlds would come up as like the greatest
cliffhanger.
season ending
Yeah,
cliffhanger of all time. Mr. Worf,
and you can't do
fire. Everyone
cliffhangers.
remembers that. Yeah.
You can't do cliffhangers on the Netflix model, because it's just like, oh, just queue up the next episode. Like it's immediately
Yeah.
there, and it's like,
Mhm.
that's great, because I love cramming them all in and watching them all in like succession and getting the entire story all at once, even though it's exhausting. And I'm up until 6 o'clock in the morning watching the entire goddamn thing or longer. Um, it's train of thought has left the station and completely derailed. Um, Netflix is fine. I like the way they do that, but this episodic way of doing it, I think, is a little more sustainable and a little more like, especially for content creators doing sort of reflections on this stuff. It gives us a little more to do, because we're reviewing an entire season at once when we do one of these. Whereas these, we can kind of pick up on specific things in episodes, whereas like we have to remember an entire like 8 episode arc,
Mhm.
and we miss a lot of the smaller details talking about the larger story. Whereas the larger story is unfolding in front of us, and we're kind of commenting on the pace and nature of it as we go. But like, we get to spend a little more time talking about Data and Lore combining, about the little Worf moments, about you know our hopes for what is coming up next within this season, not speculating what's going to happen on the broad stroke of next season, just seeing where these plot lines are going this season, kind of thing. So the sort of micro analysis of this stuff, I think, is a little more enjoyable, and gives us stuff to do.
Yeah.
Because unfortunately, it's been a glut of like not interesting movies to even comment on this year, and the channel's
Yeah.
not had a lot to do except for you know us doing Last of Us and us doing Picard so far. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, all right, folks. I think that'll do it for this week. But next week, Easter season, last 2 episodes. Borg, think positive thoughts. And until next time, I'm Ryan Murphy.
and I'm James Sheridan
And thank you for keeping it real.
with ReelTime. Good night.